Hey guys. Welcome back. It is Her Healing Hour, the podcast, season 2, episode 2, available on YouTube if you're joining me here now live, and also on Anchor and all supported podcast platforms through Anchor, including Google and Apple. Welcome back. It's been another week since we've last chatted. And believe it or not, the topic that I actually had for today, I'm going to push back until next week because I have just come off the phone with a close family member of mine. And the conversation that we had is kind of what I'm inspired to chat about with you today. So I think I've titled this podcast, but I'm still playing with different options. Is going broke, or being broke rather, will literally compromise everything in your life, including your health. And what I mean by that is being wealthy, having more than enough capital and means to, in this very capitalistic sort of society that we live in, especially those of us who are out here in the West, in these streets right here, know that anything of quality has a tremendous markup. I think, if I'm being brutally honest, and this is probably going to speak more to younger listeners, people who are maybe under the age of 35, it's really disheartening for me. Well, number one, to see that if you want to live a quote unquote clean life, you have to pay a premium for it. So, for instance, clean ingredients, organic versus non-organic. I've already done a podcast on why you should eat organic. Feel free to go back to season 1, where I outline that the British Soil Association themselves conducted like a 25-year study where they compared organic produce to non-organic, and literally the nutrient content was like 85% greater, more potent in organic food. Never mind the fact that all the ides, rodenticides, pesticides, fungicides, all that stuff definitively diminishes your health, and over the long term will create dis-ease, autoimmune issues, and possibly even the big C, God forbid. So the fact that we already, as people that are consuming organic foods, have to pay, 25, 35% more. The fact that if you want to wear clothes made out of cotton, preferably organic cotton that hasn't been sprayed, because cotton is also sprayed with horrible ides and chemicals that, guess what, go into your skin, go through the skin rather, and into your body. Let's not forget that everything that you put on the body literally goes in the body. Your skin is the largest organ, and it's not just here to encase you. It's a moving and breathing and living organ that secretes, that breathes, that detoxifies, and that ingests and consumes, right? So it's consuming oxygen, it's consuming nutrients from the sun, it's also consuming energy, and it's equally consuming anything that's on your skin. Even whilst you're lying down on your mattress, your skin is taking in whatever has been sprayed into that mattress. So, as a holistic lifestyle coach, I would tell you to invest in an organic mattress, something that's preferably made out of organic material and hasn't been sprayed. I would tell you, and I would advise you to purchase and invest in organic cotton sheets or bamboo sheets or eucalyptus sheets, hemp sheets. But all of this stuff costs what? Mucho dinero. Buzz, ganzab. Tanti soldi, loads of cash. I don't know how many other languages I need to say it in. It is not cheap. Then you consider how you may want to shield yourself from EMFs and what the cost of that is. For instance, those of you that are seeing me, I'm wearing my blue blocks. These were not free $99, although I wish they were. Von Charge or Raw Optics, if you want to partner up with me, reach out. I am more than happy to work alongside you, not unlike JP Sears, who I'm guessing gets all of that merch for free. And that merch is not inexpensive. What I'm getting at is once you've made this choice, right? Even if you haven't made this choice to live this life that's like organic and natural or as close to nature as you can get, if you're still like a city dweller like we are, um, there's a price to it. Then, if you want to be on these platforms and sharing whatever wisdom you might have, whether it be you're a finance major or an economics major, or maybe you're a relationship expert. In my case, I'm a wellness expert, right? The equipment that we need in order to be able to come live to you, whether it be quality mics, a good mobile phone, a quality laptop, some ring lights to make myself visible to you because it is nighttime. And she is trying to record live and needs light because otherwise my melanated skin will fade, fade to black. All of this stuff takes money. It takes resources. If you are wanting to take holidays. Like, again, if you're not even concerned about a holistic lifestyle, if you want to visit your family that might be in another country or in another state over the holidays, if you want to fly them out to see you, if you want to be able to join the girls, yeah, on a birthday trip that's long overdue because we had 2 years of politics and nonsense that locked us down and prevented us from gathering. All of this stuff, right, requires money. And when you get to my age and you've been working for 20 plus or even 30 years, and you have to look at, and you look at sort of what you've been able to accrue, save, invest, it can at times be very disheartening. And that's kind of what the conversation was about with a close family relative of mine that I've just come off of. And it made me realize, again, because I've had this thought before, but haven't maybe verbalized it. And I don't believe I've shared it with you all yet. That there's something to be said, fam. There is something to be said for delaying gratification. I have had the opportunity to travel and see the world at large. Not all of it. There is actually many countries that I still want to see because there's what, almost 200 countries. So let me take that back. I've not seen the world at large because if you consider that there are almost 200 countries in the world and I have maybe seen a fraction. I've seen a fraction. I've never counted. I'm sure over 20, but you know, there are so many to see that obviously, relatively speaking, I don't feel like I've seen as much as I thought maybe. I've gone on a tangent, but you all should know this by now. It's kind of a specialty of mine, isn't it? Going on tangents. No, but seriously, to reel it back in, yeah, and to stay on topic. I've enjoyed myself. I've lived in some of the greatest cities in the world, including obviously London, New York City, and have really enjoyed that and enjoyed the networking abilities that those cities have afforded me, the exposure to different cultures and various backgrounds and various people, as well as really successful people, creative people, ingenious people, if I'm being honest. I have been in the room. I've been in rooms with billionaires, with former presidents. Like I've been very blessed. And I don't think I would have had those opportunities had I not been in those cities doing what I was doing. But even with that being said, right, I'm still not where I wish to be. And neither is the person I was just speaking to. Now, granted, we both actually are very fortunate in that we do have investments. So we have investments, I have multiple investments for which I'm really grateful. And yet I still find myself not being comfortable to the place where I can say, yeah, absolutely. I can, at the drop of a dime, do X, Y, and Z, or fly out and meet so and so, or, take a week off from working and just do nothing. There is a time and place when I can do those things. Oftentimes it requires my planning and my budgeting beforehand. But that sort of spontaneity that some people have because they were able to delay gratification. I don't have that right now. And it can be a little bit discouraging. So I guess again, in really addressing people who are maybe 35 and younger, although people my age too could maybe also benefit from this, reminding ourselves that it's a good idea to wait, to get all of our ducks lined up in a row. Because even if you take money out of this equation, and we're speaking about, let's say, career, imagine being steadfast and so focused in your 20s, yeah, that by the time you get to 35 or even 40, you have not only achieved your professional goals, but have maybe even achieved your financial goals to the point where you can actually retire, or at the very least semi-retire. Meaning you can pick and choose and say, yes, I want to do this. And no, I don't need to take this opportunity because it's not in alignment with my core values. Because the thing is, when you're my age, you know what your core values are. And all of you that haven't stopped to reflect on your core values, it's one of the things that I suggest and recommend most. It's one of the things that my mentor made me do around the time that I was 35. I was back in London working with him steadfast for weeks and weeks because I was in a really, really dark space. I had come out of a horrible, abusive relationship and was more broken than I have ever been in my life. So I spent several weeks, it turned into months, back with my mentor, my first mentor, actually. We reunited again, who's a Czech practitioner. I've mentioned him before. And sidebar, I too now am a Czech practitioner. So it's been full circle for me. But one of the things that he made me do, which I thought was not all that meaningful at the time, but now I understand and I understand, was sit down and write down and reflect on what my core values are. What are the things that I will and will not compromise on? I won't compromise, for example, on things like nutrition. So I won't buy food that's not clean because I understand and understand that food is thy medicine. And unlike most doctors in the medical field today, slight shade, right? I have not forgotten that. The answer to your wellness is in the choices and the decisions that you make, not in the prescriptions and the pills that you take. You are accountable. You are more accountable and more responsible for wherever your health is at today than anything else. So, because of that, I made choices, right? That I would always, no matter what, buy clean, organic food. And that costs a lot of money. And at times that meant I had to maybe forego saving. So, because of that, I can't entirely beat myself up for being maybe not as comfortable as I would like to be, because there are things that I won't compromise on. But then there are other things that I indulged in, which I could have delayed gratification on. Some trips I could have definitely held off on. Maybe perhaps even some certifications. I don't know. That one is tough for me because I've spent the better part of the last 2 years immersed in my studies and gaining a ton of education, qualifications, and certifications that have given me, I believe, the ability to build myself up in this career now as a wellness expert in a way that I would not have been able to do 2.5 years ago. So this time of politics and confusion and chaos that made us all stay indoors and all the rest of that didn't come without benefits, because had I not been forced to just stop everything, including a fabulous life in New York City, and just kind of hunker down and buckle down and be steadfast in my studies, I wouldn't have the skill set that I now have. And so for that, I am very grateful, because it's something that I'll always be able to use, market, and barter with, right? But there are things that I could have said no to. A lot of takeaways I could have said no to. Delicious meals in Brooklyn that I could have said no to. A lot of coffees I could have said no to. A lot of maybe last minute trips. A lot of gifts. I don't know if you're like me, but if you're like me, I find myself over gifting. I've definitely worked on this for the last since I turned 40, I've definitely been working on this because I want to find my value, not in the things that I'm able to give people materially or in material terms, but through like being present. I want you to find your value in me through my presence, through my offerings, through my energy exchange with you, right? And so I've definitely curbed that. But for many, 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 many years, especially as all my friends were getting married or turning 30, 35, 40, getting engaged, having children, I was just too quick and eager to do this. For those of you that can't see me, I'm making it rain, essentially just, and that had to do something to do also with a lack of self-esteem, right? If we're being brutally, brutally honest. But did it serve me? No, it didn't, right? Because now I'm in a situation where with these inflated times that we're in, with these times of potential food shortages coming up and cyber attacks or blackouts, who knows what's down the pipeline for us, right? Am I as financially comfortable as I would like to be, or even liquid as I would like to be? No. Now, grateful again, because I do have investments that I could, if I needed to, liquefy in order to become liquid. But that's not obviously ideal, is it? Ideally, you always have a certain amount of cash so that you can keep your investments as that investments for the long term. I didn't get into any of these investments to hold them short term. I want to be able to hold them long term, and then maybe even potentially pass them on to offspring. So again, it comes down to, are we able to delay gratification? Are we able to hone in on the things that really matter to us? I bought a ton of delicious coffees and supported some phenomenal coffee shops in all the major cities that I've been in. But as a result of that, I don't have all the organic cotton or just non-polyester clothing that I would like to own. I'm very much doing it on a piece by piece basis, right? So in order to quote unquote help the economy and be out there and support all the small business owners, what I forgave or gave up was the ability to change out my entire wardrobe, to be more liquid, to change out all the mattresses in the home so that they're all organic, right? Because these things matter to me. Because even if you are not me, if you come to my home and you're visiting me, I want you to experience what it's like to live like as the AlkaliYogi, a life that, is a little bit slower, very organic, a little bit closer to nature, less exposure to EMFs because we have things in the home for that. Some of them are shungite crystals, or snake plants or other varietals of plants that also absorbs EMFs. These blue blockers, which protect from blue light. There are loads of other accessories that you could add to like your laptop. I have a case for my phone also with an EMF blocker. So all of these things, they cost money, right? But they create a more Zen-like environment. And for me, they vastly improve my quality of life. I truly believe that. And for me, they've also helped me to retain and flourish in my health. I really believe that also. So if you're going to be my guest, I want you to have the best of what I have: organic linens, organic towels, clean toothpaste, access to clean organic Castile soap to wash your body with, access to clean organic all natural shampoos and conditioners. When you're in my home, I want you to experience all of that. And yet all of this stuff costs a lot of money. So I could have made different choices along the way to have procured that for myself and for others. So again, the delayed gratification. And let's not forget that when you get yourself into a situation where you're semi, quasi, almost, or fully broke, in this here country, the United States of America, that ish costs. There is real punishment here for not being liquid and having cash. Banks outrageously charging you for having a low balance, interest rates being really high on your credit cards, the cost to borrow goes up. Everything goes up. There are fees for everything. When you are struggling and you have to maybe borrow from this account to replenish that account, then you're going to be penalized over here. There are just so many ramifications to not having your ducks all lined up. It is no joke, fam. And when you're an adult, no one is going to cut you a break. No one is going to cut you a break unless your family owns the bank, right? Unless your family owns the grocery store and will allow you to walk away with a week's worth of free groceries, organic groceries, so that you can eat. No one's going to cut you a break. You miss a payment on anything, God forbid, additional fees get tacked on top of that. Like the poor or the less liquid folks bear the grunt of all the fees and repercussions and penalties that are handed out, thrown at you with no consideration at all. The rich and the people that are very liquid don't ever have to think about these things. So it's really, really real out here. It's hard. And again, it's this constant balancing act, because not only do you want to be liquid so that if you have to travel, God forbid, for a reason that is not even necessarily a positive one, in order to get to someone who needs you, you need to have cash for that. If you're a homeowner, which I am, and things go wrong, God forbid, you have to replace something, you need cash for that. Just like that, it can come up with no warning. If there's a health matter that appears all of a sudden in this country, you have to have cash for that, which is something I've never experienced because I've always grown up in socialist countries. And although I've lived in the United States for a really long time, I've actually never had to really get health care, or sick care, as we like to refer to it as holistic practitioners in the United States. I've always been able to travel freely. And so I would always really kind of do most of my sort of checkups and what have you in Canada, where I'm still a citizen and my healthcare is universal and therefore provided for. So all of these things are, a reminder that life is very challenging and it's a constant balancing act. But with anything, money is energy, right? So it flows in, it flows out, but we have to be a little bit more discerning, I think, in these times. Yes, because they're quite precarious and there's a ton of variables that are currently unknowns, and things that could appear at any time, including potentially future lockdowns, God forbid, where everyone who knows, right? For me, a lockdown right now would definitely impact my earnings, because a lot of the work that I do requires me to be able to go out and meet clients or be in studios, yada, yada, yada. So this idea of, again, delaying your gratification and honing in on your art and your craft and becoming an expert at it so that you can create some sort of safety net and stability for yourself where you are comfortable, not just for 8 or 9 months, which is what the financial experts tell us we should have a cushion for, right? Is at least 8 or 9 months. Or do you have enough in your savings, right? Or in your checking? Never mind your savings, because you shouldn't even, hopefully you wouldn't even be dipping into that, right? In best case scenario, I mean, I'm not going to say that that's a reality for everyone, but that would be the best case scenario, right? Is that your savings wouldn't get touched. Even if you had to stop working today, you have at least enough in your checkings account to get you by for the next 8 to 9 months. Well, we were in a pandemic, excuse me, I meant to say pandemic, wink, wink, for what, 2+ years? That's way more than 8 or 9 months, isn't it? So even this situation has taught us that we have to be so discerning. One of the things that I recently heard the budgetnista say, man, I hope I don't chop this up. I bet you I will. But I think she has these categories, if you're familiar with the budgetnista, and forgive me if I'm mashing this up yet. But she's like, have categories of like what you need, what you want, what you love, and what will bring you temporary joy. I think this fourth one I'm really not sure about. So when you again know what your core values are and you think to yourself, well, will buying this today or taking this trip today still bring me joy in 6 months, or will it just compromise things for me further down, given that I don't know what's coming down the pipeline? Or is it something that will be long lasting, that maybe is like education, where I know it will add value to me as a person, or to my field of expertise? Or is it something that's fleeting, like a handbag, which is cool to have now because it's very trendy, but I might get over in a few months? Because let's be honest, how many times we buy things, we're super, super excited. And then literally within a few months, at the most a year, you're like, oh, that's so passe, right? You may have gone through great deals to procure this item, but has it actually added to your values? Has it made you a more valuable person to invest in? And is it bringing you long term joy? Has it actually improved your quality of life, or any of those things, right? So, again, I'm not doing it any justice. Please go find her online so that she can speak to you through the 4 quadrants. But I'll just say that the gist of it really resonated with me, because those coffees that I like to treat myself to are very much emotional purchases for me. They help me feel better, and they're kind of an immediate pick me up when I'm down. But then when I'm challenged with, well, do I have enough money to change out all the mattresses in the home and all the sheets in the home? Then I'm like, dang it, I should have held back. Not to bring up like a celebrity in this, but I will, for the sake of making a point again about delayed gratification. Yeah. As I take a sip of my tea, Beyonce to me is a great example of what delayed gratification looks like in your career, even. She is someone that you could say sacrificed her youth, the majority of it, in order to become the absolute best at what she does. The greatest entertainer on the planet, certainly of our generation and our time, right? Um, and has a legacy that will live on long beyond her time here on this earth. But it came at a sacrifice. I just saw something recently where Latoya Luckett, her former member from DC3, Destiny's Child, sorry, not DC3, Destiny's Child, just DC, because they became DC3 once they were reconfigured. That the four of them, the original members of Destiny's Child, they had some downtime. And whilst the rest of them were all just trying to quote unquote play and have fun, because let's remember, when these girls first emerged on the scene in the late 90s, they were very much in their teens. They were 15 and 16 years old, so children. Whilst they were trying to be kids and enjoy themselves, the three of them, Beyonce was off writing a record. She was off to the side, not trying to offload, not trying to let off some steam. She was still working on her craft. Now, I'm not saying that it's all good to be 100% just focused on, being the best and not having some balance, even in that, and giving yourself enough time to rest, to reflect, to be a child, right? But giving 80% of her energy towards her career and what she knew she wanted, versus 80% of her energy and focus towards that, and maybe giving herself 20% downtime, versus the reverse, which is most of us enjoy our youth and our childhood, right? And then are not really focused. We're like 80% kids and maybe 20% in the back of my mind. Yeah, this is what I'm going to be, and I'm going to pursue that. But I'll just put a little bit of energy and time into it, sprinkling here or sprinkling there. We're less likely to leave the same kind of a mark on the world at large, potentially, I'm saying, than somebody like Beyonce, who made a huge sacrifice. But now, as someone in her 40s, like me, she's in a place where she can, if she wants to, never sing again, never write another record, never have to do the whole song and dance, never have to, twirl for her supper. She doesn't have to compromise. She has sovereignty and freedom. Now, oftentimes, the flip side to that is most of these people who have achieved their goals financially and in their careers become so entangled in their egos that they're then unable to take a full step back and say, I did it. It's not about getting more accolades. I think she has close to 30 Grammys, more than anyone else has ever won. I think 28 or 29, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, she just released an album a few months ago, so she's still making music. Is she doing it out of the joyness of and the pureness of her heart? I don't know. That's probably debatable. Or is she doing it more to stay relevant, to still be, the talk of the town, to still garner people's attention? Is she still doing it for the lights and the glitz and the glamour? Which my guess is was a part of the driving force as she was when she was much younger, because when we are much younger, right? Aren't we all kind of doing it for the accolades? I mean, how many of us are teenagers and evolved enough to say, I'm doing this now so that I can have freedom and be removed from the matrix and be on an island in splendid isolation with the people that I love, having more than enough money and resources to take care of all of us. None of us have to be compromised in any way. I mean, how many of us are like that at 15 and 16? Maybe she was one of those people, but more than likely she was, you know, going after these goals because when you're really young, you're very young like in energy, and that means the yang side of you is connected to the masculine energy, which is very much connected to ego, right? So that's why after a certain point, as you get older, you become a little bit softer. If you are very hard as a young person, you tend to soften, and it's not because of just because you're aging, but it's also because you're just transitioning. You're coming out of one cycle into another cycle of life where you're more in tune with the soft, with the lunar, with the feminine, where you don't have to be as rough, riled up, and as charged and as destructive and as loud as you needed to be at a different point in a different cycle in your life. So she's in a position now where she could just disappear from the public eye and live her best life, raise her family and her children, and be done with it. Not be involved in the politics. Have you seen all the attacks that have come her way since she's released this album? It started off with Khalees, and then Right Said Fred, and people have just been coming left, right, and center. So I really hope for her sake that this album was truly out of love and not because she's still feeding the ego and still wants to be the biggest star on the planet, because look at all the headache that comes with that too, right? No matter how big and adorned you can be, you're going to have a ton of haters who are just going to be getting up every morning for the sake of taking you down, especially when you're as visible and as targetable as a Beyonce. That comes with a lot of stress. So I sure am hoping for her sake that her desire to be on the road again and in the public's eye and on their tongue is coming from a heartfelt felt space. Otherwise, how tragic to be trying to feed your ego and to be getting so much backlash at the same time. Um, so again, the delayed gratification, right? She's now at a place where she doesn't ever want to perform again or sing again. She can really just have fun, travel, and live her best life. But oftentimes, people like her, even though they've been smart and made many a correct decisions, get unfortunately held up and tied up by the ego. We could say this about other people who are extremely wealthy and could be out of the public's eye. Madonna, for example, she could be quietly retreated and living her best life, whomever she's with, whatever she's doing, like, and just raising her children. She doesn't need any more money. She has more than she could possibly consume, but she still wants to be the talk of the town. You've got the non-entertainer wealthy elites like the Gates and the Bezos and the Schwabs. They're out here playing God. So we know they're in the grip of their egos. But that's not really what I want to get into, anyways, today. It's just to show you that there is something to be said for sacrificing maybe sacrificing is not the greatest word. I don't love that word. I'm going to go back to delaying the gratification, because you have a vision for where you want to be, a vision for what you want to be able to do, not just for self, but for your loved ones and your tribe and your community. Because when you're wealthy, you have the ability to not only improve your life, but you can enhance the life of those around you. You can elevate your entire tribe and give opportunity to your community at large that they may not have had an opportunity to tap into, based on your ability to just go forward and pursue with focus and a little bit of balance what it is that you wanted to achieve. Because I'll tell you honestly, as a licensed holistic lifestyle coach, as a Czech practitioner, as a corrective exercise coach, all of these things that I preach or practice or coach my clients towards, unfortunately, come at a cost. It's a complete upheaval of your life, right? For you to really realign yourself with nature is so much greater than you just buying organic food. It means tossing out your socks and your undies, your knickers that are polyester, and getting something that's naturally made, organic, and a natural fiber. Because your aura cannot penetrate, your aura cannot communicate. So the insides are in constant communication with the outsides. You are energy, you are aura, you are life force. And that stuff gets trapped when you put something synthetic over the greatest organ on your body, which is what? Your skin, right? Not to mention your skin doesn't breathe when it's under polyester. Neither can your feet. Your feet are grounding forces. Your feet also house chakras. How do you expect your chakra points at the bottom of your feet, which are in need of constant cleansing because your feet are the grounding force? Remember, your energy is coming in through your crown chakra, right? Energy and thoughts and ideas get filtered in right through here. I'm pointing to the top of my head. And everything needs to come out. Otherwise, it gets trapped, because energy is doing what? It's constantly in motion. Your aura is constantly evolving. Your energy is constantly moving. And all of that needs to happen through organic matter. The minute you apply things that are synthetic and man-made and non-breathing, things get stuck. Things start to jam up like they would on a highway when traffic is not moving. And what happens when things are not moving? They begin to go stale. Just like the body begins to go stale if it's not moving. Water, like a swamp, when you look at it, starts to do what? It starts to go off, doesn't it? You need to keep things moving and circulating. That is literally the definition of life. When we're stopping is when we're dying. When we're not breathing, right? When oxygen is no longer flowing in through our cells, through our lungs, through our nostrils, we're decaying, we're dying. So everything needs an outlet, everything needs a release, which is why I go back to, you have to change out a lot of things that we have adapted into our current quote unquote advanced or modern lifestyles in order to restore your health. If you're vested and you're truly interested, and come back to something that is more analogous to, more aligned with, more similar to a lifestyle that our ancestors might have been living even as recently as 50 years ago, never mind 75 and 100 years back. All right. I think I have, sometimes in a long-winded way, made my point. Other times I can be more concise, but hopefully you have found this informative nonetheless. And you're getting the message, which is, young people, save. I am not a financial guru, so I'm not giving you financial advice, but I will tell you this: delay some of that gratification. Always put at least 10 to 20% away. Actually, make it 30. Round it up to a whole 30. Maybe 10 goes towards one savings account, 10 towards investments, and another 10 in another savings account. And try to make do with the other 70. And be innovative, creative, and think of ways to procure more streams of income. Because the thing about wealthy people too, including the Beyoncés and the Gates and all these people, is that they have multiple streams of income. So that if, God forbid, one of the things that you do for money is halted for a period of time, and many of us can relate to that now after the last 2.5 years, even if one stream of income is halted because they are not permitting you to go out there and work, you have other things that can still help to sustain you without you having to then compromise your water, your food, the clothes on your back, what you're sleeping on, because all of this stuff adds up at the end of the day. All stress summates in the body, point blank, and to the period. All right, on that long note, I'm going to bid you adieu until next week. She is going to sign off. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, reach out to me. You know how. I'm the AlkaliYogi. You can find me right here on the gram and on my website. As always, I'm happy to answer questions also down below in the questions box. Until next time. Ciao.